Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, episode 84. Today's date, September 18th. On today's podcast, we get into a bunch of topics. With the WNBA concluding its regular season schedule on Thursday, we'll preview all 12 teams playing in the W, especially with that 8 seed with a lot of playoff implications between, obviously, Atlanta, Chicago, and the third team being Washington. We'll talk about the scenarios with those teams, who can get in, who can't. Next, we'll stick with the WNBA and look at the WNBA lottery. It's based for a 2-year window with lottery odds. We'll talk about that and really quickly go over some of the top prospects that could go in the beginning of the 2026 WNBA draft. Speaking of the WNBA, we'll talk about expansion. WNBA is at 12 teams. Folks, by the 2026 season, they'll have 15 with an announcement today, with possibly a 16th team by 27-28. We'll make sure we talk a little bit about that. Lastly, we got to continue our preview of the NBAs, focusing on the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's get started in today's podcast with the WNBA concluding its regular season schedule. There are 3 teams right now that are competing for that last spot. And those 3 teams are the Washington Mystics, the Atlanta Dream, and the Chicago Sky. So first game we'll preview really quickly is the Indiana Fever as a 4.5-point underdog on the road going up against the Washington Mystics. Now, obviously, you're looking at the Washington Mystics and saying, how is this team favored by 4.5? Simply put, folks, with their win last night, or with the loss last night, or the whatever the standings, the Indiana Fever clinched the number 6 seed overall in the WNBA playoffs. So they have nothing to play for. So Christy Sides may sit Caitlin Clark, although I think she plays a little bit. She may sit Tiffany Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, so on and so forth. Which means this game becomes really important to a Washington Mystics team. A team, folks, that began the season 0-12. 0-12. And just to think for the fact that Kurt Thibault and this team has a chance, folks, to make the WNBA playoffs is really a testament to the job he has done. Simply put, folks, for the simple fact that they have nothing to play for, Indiana, and I don't want to risk anything, I'm going to take the Washington Mystics minus the 4.5 points. I think they find a way to get it done. When you think about the season series, and obviously you talk about the fact that everybody's playing, right? And for Washington, probably not for Indiana, is the fact that Washington won the last meeting as 89-84 as a 5.5-point underdog. So if you really look at it, folks, they have covered the spread in the last game at Indiana. So I do want to go ahead and say that I'm going to take the Washington Mystics minus the 4.5 points at home because they have something to play for. Yes, they have not covered their previous 2 games, but before that, they had covered 7 of their previous 8. Give me the Washington Mystics minus the points. Next game, you have the Chicago Sky. Minus 12.5 point favorite underdog. Chicago's underdog, 12.5 points versus Connecticut. Folks, good luck figuring out who's playing in this game. Let's just be honest. Now, can Chicago get in? Yes, I'll go over the scenarios in a second. But Angel Reese is out. Williams may be out. Cardozo may be out. Carter may be out. And then you look at the other side, Connecticut's locked into the 3 seed. What do they have to play for at this point? Best way to look at this game, if there's missing a lot of players, I'm going to go with the under. Now, I know the games have gone 162, 158, and 168, but because of the number of players that could be out, it could be a struggle. And obviously, one thing that should be clear is Connecticut still should defend. I'm going to go under 152.5 in the game tomorrow. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points. Third game in the WNBA. has the Atlanta Dream headed to New York, taking on New York Liberty. Liberty as a 3.5-point favorite. Simply put, let's go through this again. What does New York have to play for? Absolutely nothing. They're the number 1 seed. Stewie may sit. Sab may sit. Double J may sit. Lainey Hamilton's had injuries during the course of the year. She may sit. Vandersloot, she may sit. So I'm going to look at this a couple of ways. One, because the Atlanta Dream have something to play for here. I'm going to take the Atlanta Dream on the money line plus 128. I think they find a way to get it done because they need a win. Folks, and I'm going to say this right now, there are no player props really out for tomorrow because no one knows who's playing. I'll say this now and I'll repeat it later. I will post tomorrow early afternoon a scouting report with more plays and props based off of what happens with injury reports. So this is good information for you to have now, but make sure you come back and check out social media on Sports Grid, and I'll post at Coach Young, NJ on X, and on Instagram. I will post my plays to make sure you know what's going down. But right now, based on what I think and what they need, Atlanta Dream on the money line plus 128 versus the New York Liberty. Next game on the docket is you have the Minnesota Lynx as a 6-point favorite versus the Los Angeles Sparks. Now, this Los Angeles Sparks team, folks, they have been absolutely terrible. They have lost so many games in a row. I don't know how many it is, but I can tell you this, it's a whole hell of a lot. And they have locked up, and we'll talk about it a little bit, the number 1 seed, or the best chance of winning the WNBA lottery. The Sparks have lost 8 games in a row, 9 out of their last 10. And Minnesota's been playing such outstanding basketball, 30-9, number 2 seed, locked that up, 7 wins in a row, hottest team in the WNBA. This is probably the one game, in fact, that neither team has nothing to play for. I'm just going to go with the better team. I'm going to go with Minnesota Lynx minus the points versus the Los Angeles Sparks. It's about 6.5. Make sure you shop around. Next game on the docket has the Seattle Storm at the Phoenix Mercury. Seattle is a 1.5-point favorite, over under 160.5. Simply put, this is a stay away game. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Just want to let you guys know what the lines are right now. I don't know who's playing. And if you go to FanDuel right now and try to find any player prop for anybody playing in that game, you aren't going to find any. Next game on the docket, we'll have the Dallas Wings at the Las Vegas Aces. Aces minus 8.5-point favorite. Aces locked up the 4 seed. They'll face Seattle in the first round of the playoffs. This will be an interesting game for me because I was talking to a friend of mine, a Power 5, very well-connected assistant coach. And I think this could be an end of an era. Really quick. Arika Onwuale is one of the best scorers in the WNBA. She's been there since she got there. And they have Satu Sabally, who I think is absolutely fantastic. Folks, I'm saying this right now. One of them will not be on Dallas next year. One of them's not going to be back. I would think that maybe Arika could fetch you more in the open market, but I think Satu Sabally is a free agent. I'm going to give you a team to watch out for right now. And you're going to be like, what? They're going to go with somebody else? Ready? New York. Satu Sabally is from New York. Satu Sabally is very close and played with Sabrina Ionescu. I'm going to go on record and I'm going to say this, and maybe I'm crazy. With Jonquel Jones, who's up and down in her game sometimes, and the fact that they could use a big, better than Tierra McCowan, I'm going to propose Satu Sabally for Jonquel Jones. You can move Stewie to the 5, bring Satu home. Satu could be that stretch four. You have a dynamic inside-out 4-5 game with Stewie and Satu. Stewie can obviously rebound the ball. They can both shoot the three. Satu comes home. Remember, Satu Sabli, born in New York City. As regards to the Aces, we're just going to see how this team is. They're playing better basketball down the stretch. Could this be what we've been waiting for the Vegas Aces? Remember, folks, they are 8-2 in their last 10, and they have won 4 games in a row. Now getting into the WNBA lottery, with the 2025 season coming to a close, 2024, I should say, with the lottery in 2025, and what people understand, it's a little bit different than the NBA. In the WNBA, it goes by your 2-year record. And then from there, you have odds to get the number 1 pick. If you look right now, the Los Angeles Sparks have the worst record by far. Based off losing 9 out of the last 10, they have a 44.2% chance of number 1 pick. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Dallas is 31-48. I think they're going to want to try and lose because then it would allow them to maybe get that number 2 pick at 27.6% chance. Sky, Mystics, Dream. Not only are they competing, folks, for the 8th and final playoff spot, they're also competing for spots 3, 4, 5. Now, one thing to make sure people understand, just in case they don't know this, the Atlanta Dream's pick goes to the Mystics. So you could have a scenario. If Chicago were to win, and I will give you the scenarios in a second, that the third and the fourth best odds to win the lottery, only 4 teams can win the lottery because there's only 4 teams that will make the WNBA playoffs, will then have a chance, will be the Washington Mystics. So it becomes very interesting here what teams do. Now, really quick before I go to expansion in the WNBA, I got to explain this. And folks, I hope you're ready for this. The WNBA for the 8th seed, I want to say this, and I'm going to say this slow, because 3 teams can get in, and there's all kinds of scenarios. Ready? If Atlanta, Washington, and Chicago win, the Dream are in. If Atlanta wins and Washington and Chicago lose, Atlanta's in. If Atlanta and Washington win, but Chicago loses, Atlanta's in. If Atlanta and Chicago win, Washington lose, Atlanta is in. So basically, think about this. If Atlanta wins, it's over. They're in. So now let's get into all the other stuff. If Atlanta, Washington, and Chicago loses, Atlanta's still in by tiebreakers. Now, if Chicago wins and Atlanta and Washington lose, Chicago's in. If Washington and Chicago win, but Atlanta loses, Washington's in. You got that? Maybe not. But I will be sure. There's some great writers, including Alexis Philippou, that writes for ESPN, that has posted the scenarios. I will be sure that I will retweet her tweet from earlier, from last night, which gives you all the odds. Speaking of the W, let's move on. So the WNBA has announced that Portland has been awarded a franchise that will begin at the 2026 season. First thing to understand is, folks, Portland becomes the first team in the history of the WNBA that had a franchise in their city. The team folded, and they're going back. Portland Fire, folks, 2002 to 2002, were in the WNBA. Now, you're looking at me and saying, wait a minute, Coach, there's 12 teams in the WNBA. How are you saying there's 15? Funny you ask. They've already made a couple of announcements already with the WNBA. Number 1, the Golden State Valkyries will begin play in 2025. Toronto was already granted and has a little bit of a head start. They will join with Portland in 2026. And Kathy Engelbert, who is the commissioner, says that there will be a 16th team by 2028. So one team in 25, Golden State, Portland, Toronto, 26, 16th team and 28. And that's good news for a WNBA, which has become more popular and allows for more players to come into the league. There's only, I think, 144 players in the league, 12 players per team, 12 teams, 12 times 12 equals 144. So this gives more access to the league. You got to also think about the fact that knowing Kelly Graves and knowing the tradition that a school like Oregon has had in women's college basketball. Oregon State has been really good for a while before in the Pac-12. Now, I don't even know what league they're in, but I guess the Pac-12 is coming back. That's a story for another day. But also the emergence and having Nike up there in Portland area, Eugene to be exact, makes this a good move and sets up a natural rivalry between Portland and Seattle. Also could help with travel. If teams go on road trips, you could knock out those two cities, and it's not that far of a commute. Congratulations to Portland being the 15th franchise in the WNBA. They will begin play in 2026. Let's end today's podcast by going to the NBA and looking at the futures market for three teams. Let's start off with an interesting team, folks, and the Clippers. The Clippers right now have an over-under win total of 39.5. Think about that, folks. The Los Angeles Clippers, a perennial powerhouse for a long time that won 51 games, is 39.5. Odds to win the Pacific Division, 9-1. Odds to win the conference is at 40-1. I think that may be incorrect. And the odds to win NBA Finals is 80-1. So I'm going to just double check that really quickly here because we may have just kind of messed that up a little bit, but that's fine. Mistakes happen, and I'll be sure to just update and let you guys know. Their win total is 39.5. That is correct. That is the Western Conference, not the Eastern Conference. And then obviously the odds win the NBA Finals. Now, when you look at this Clippers team, it's amazing that a team that's been a perennial powerhouse has such a low win total. But let's be honest, folks, when you look at the Clippers, what do we have, right? You have Paul George leaving and going to Philadelphia. You have Kawhi Leonard, who is often injured. So you have a starting lineup of James Harden, Terrence Mann, Derrick Jones Jr., Kawhi Leonard, and Ibaka Zubac, who had a really, really good year. Ibaka Zubac. His backups, interesting with Chris Dunn, Norman Powell, Amir Coffey, Nick Batum is back, and Mo Bamba. They signed Kevin Porter Jr. end of the year. They still have PJ Tucker. They have Cam Christie. So it's an interesting roster, I would say, with the Clippers. But folks, when you really sit back and look at it, like, number one, they're not winning the division. So let's just put that one to bed right there. But you start digging a little bit with the Clippers, and if you think about how I do this, right? Okay, so where are they in the West? Oklahoma City, better. Denver, better. Minnesota, better. Dallas, better. Suns, better. Pelicans, better. Kings, better. Rockets, better. Memphis, better. So where is the value, if there is at all, for a team like the Clippers? And I think what you have to do is, it's tough because for odds for them to make the playoffs is plus 184. The odds for them to miss the playoffs is minus 230. So you can't go there, right? if you think they're going to get into the playoffs, it's going to be the play-in, and it's plus 160. So you have to figure out, did the Clippers finish 7 through 10, or they finish 11th or worse? If you think that they're going to go 7 to 10, that means they're going over 39.5 wins. If you think they're not going to be 7 to 10, it's under 39.5 wins. Simply put, the only way to bet this is over/under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorlis told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up. I think the Clippers will finish under 39.5 wins. Let's move on to the Lakers. A team's win total is sitting at 43.5. Odds to win the Pacific Division, 5-1. Western Conference, 20-1. Finals, 40-1. A Lakers team that won 47 games last year, and think about this, 43.5 wins. Think about this for a second, folks. Ready? It took 46 to make the playoffs. If the Lakers just get the 44 wins, I don't think they get in. So when you look at the Lakers, and listen, LeBron James continues to defy father time. You can't say enough about LeBron last year, 25.7, 7.3, 8.3 assists at 39 years old. A LeBron James that's been doing it for so long, right? Yeah, his 25.7 points per game is the lowest since 2021. I get it. His 7.3 assists is his lowest since 2014, 2015, right? His 7.3 rebounds is his lowest since 2014, 2015. That ain't his fault. He also shot 54% from the floor, which is his best since 2017, 2018. His 41% from three for LeBron. Folks, LeBron in year, 20 had his best shooting of his career at 41%. He only shot over 40% one other time from three in his career. And that was in Miami in 2012, 2013. So the LeBron train ain't slowing up. Where's my concern with the Lakers? One, it's the health of Anthony Davis. Now, you're going to look at Anthony Davis last year and say, guy played 76 games last year. 24.9. 12.6. Career high. 3.5 assists. Second best of his career. 2.3 blocks. Best for blocks for him since 18-19 with New Orleans. The key is 76. It's the games he played last year. 22-23, 54. 21-22, 40. 20-21, 36. 19-20, 62. Anthony Davis hasn't played 76 games in his career. Last year was the first year. Something tells me injuries catch up to Anthony Davis. So there's my concern right there with the Lakers is, can he stay healthy? Because he doesn't have a track record to do so. I thought D'Angelo Russell would be gone. He's back. D'Angelo Russell, you can't hide in the playoffs. Austin Reeves, good player. Can he take the next step? Rui Hachimura, played well in the playoffs 2 years ago. Gave him the bag. Doesn't do anything. Jared Vanderbilt, often injured. Gabe Vincent, gave him the money for Miami. Hasn't played well. And then there are the rookies. Dalton Knecht and Bronny James. I'm not expecting Bronny to really do much to help the team out this year. He's going to be a stash guy. They got to develop his game because he basically missed a whole bunch of his freshman year due to the heart issue. And I know he played, but he wasn't right. Dalton Knecht's got to step in and make shots. The reason why the Lakers aren't good, they can't shoot. I find it hard to believe that LeBron James is not going to find a way to get his team close to the playoffs. I've been going back and forth on this all day. Give me the Los Angeles Lakers plus 140 to make the play-in tournament. That gives me a good buffer between 7 and 10. Now, they just may squeak over that 43 win total, 44, 45, 46. But I don't think they're top 6. I just find it really hard that LeBron's not going to find a way to get them into the playoffs or to play in. Give me the Lakers plus 140 to make the Western play-in tournament. Next team, Memphis Grizzlies, 27 and 55. But they have a win total of 47 and a half. Their over-under win total is 20 games higher than last year's wins. So you're saying to yourself, how the hell did that, how? How is Minnesota's or Memphis's win total so high based off of last year? Well, simply put, let's go to the videotape. Ja Morant, 9 games. Suspension, injuries. Desmond Bane, 42 games. Jaren Jackson Jr., 66 games. Marcus Smart, 20 games. Brandon Clark, 6 games. Remember, he had the torn Achilles. So you're looking at this team, and you're like, can they get to 47 and a half? I think they're going to be the team, them and New Orleans, that are going to really shock some teams here. And looking at the schedule, got to remember, folks, a couple of years ago, they were the number 2 seed. So this team ain't a bunch of scrubs. Number 1, can Ja Morant be healthy? And can Ja Morant stay out of trouble? If Ja Morant is healthy, and he is right, Ja Morant's a top 20 player in the NBA. Not only his ability to score, but an 8 assists a game last year in those 9 games, the ability to create for others. Desmond Bane's a top flight 2 guard that can shoot the ball really, really well from 3. This is a guy that, for his career, is a 41.5% shooter from 3. 23.7 points per game last year. Won't have to score as much with Ja being back, but he's that spacer at the 3-point line. And there's Jaren Jackson Jr., the guy that should be a double-double machine, but is not. 22.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds. And that's the problem with Triple J, is the 5.5 rebounds, standing at 6'10", 242 pounds. Someone that could be an elite defender, elite rebounder and shot blocker if he put his mind to it. I think, and I've been a Triple J fan for a long time. I just got this feeling this is going to be the year he brings it defensively. I think when you look at the depth and you look at this team, what's going to help Triple J is the big man from Purdue. And that's Zach Edey. I think Zach Edey should be your play for Rookie of the Year. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is at his best in his career when he had Steven Adams. Big-bodied, bully ball big at the 5 to take up space and allow Triple J to be our weak side shot blocker, weak side rebounder. Because Ja is back and healthy and I think engaged, because Desmond Bane will be back and healthy, because I think you'll get Marcus Smart, a guy with a lot of pride, with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey in that front court, with one of the best shooters in the NBA, maybe the best besides Steph Curry and Luke Kennard, with Brandon Clark finally healthy back after injury. I am taking the Memphis Grizzlies at plus 240 to win the Southwest Division, and I'm taking them over 47.5 wins. I think this team approaches 50. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast for September 18th. For all things sports gambling, download that Sports Grid app. Pre-game, in-game, post-game, props, predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. Next podcast will be next week. We'll dive into the WNBA playoffs. We'll continue our preview of the NBA, and we'll get into some good topics. Maybe we'll start top 10 players or top 5 players by position in the NBA. For my producer, Matty George, Vinny, who does a great job with the graphics. Thanks for listening, folks. Remember, it's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Good night.